Good evening to everyone who is tuning in tonight, and welcome back to another BC Wrestle Pod edition of Grapple Gurus, your PPV and PLE review show here on the BC Wrestle Pod Network. I am your host, Mikey, and joining me this evening is my lovely individual here who has been holding it down with me this past weekend and is going to be a main driving force this week, Mr. Adolfo. Welcome back for round two.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about some Wrestle Kingdom, but we do have some NJPW news first.
Yes, exactly. So
shall we get through that?
Yeah, so really quickly, follow us on the social medias. You can pretty much look at everything at BC WrestlePod. Follow us there, get some merch, be great. All right, I'm gonna tag it Adolfo because this is hot off the presses.
Right.
Just there we go.
All right, so this is off of some happenings that happened this weekend. Chris Charlton, the NJPW ringside announcer, he is the one that wears the bow tie, the smaller of the two. It has come out that he has been suspended by NJPW. This is through Fightful Select. Thank you, Fightful Select. Dave Meltzer reported today that NJPW commentator Chris Charlton was taken an indefinite hiatus after comments about AEW and Tony Khan. Among them was calling Tony Khan a money mark and criticizing AEW signing Will Ospreay and Switchblade Jay White and their use since. Fightful Select has learned that it isn't a hiatus and that Charlton was actually suspended for 2 months. There were people on both sides of the coin backstage praising him, but others that thought the comments were out of line. NJPW's claim is that AEW and Tony Khan did not have input on the suspension, but we've heard AEW was not happy about the comments. So there you go. We won't be seeing Chris Charlton with NJPW, which we were talking about this earlier. You know, I actually really enjoyed the announcing team for the NJPW events. I don't know the other individual's name, but they made a very good team, and at times they did get, you know, a little spicy, but I liked it. You know, I felt it went along with, you know, with the show and the flow and how it was supposed to go. Now I'm rhyming and I'm in timing anyway, but yeah, so you know, it's sad Chris was suspended like this. However, you know, on that other side of the coin, and you know, we've said it here on many of our AEW reviews that the usage of the NJPW talent and the ROH talent and pretty much any of the other talent that comes into AEW isn't always the best. So should an announcer that kind of sort of is tangentially connected to AEW say those things out loud? Probably not.
And so as of right now, with Chris, you know, Charlton being on this hiatus or for the suspension, that means unless we get guest commentary, sole commentary for both Stardom and New Japan, we'll go strictly to Walker Stewart, who is the name of the Under Gentleman, who we heard this whole entire past weekend with Stardom and the Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty shows. So moving forward, we'll see what happens, because New Japan's next big show is their Sakura Genesis show, and that's usually sometime in April. So we will be keeping an eye on that. Also, this was going to be saved for later, but we will be covering the US-based shows, because in April there's also Windy City Riot.
City Riot.
So
we're
going to cover that, because this is also Tanahashi's last USA show.
Yeah,
he's retiring very soon at the end of this year. So this will be Tanahashi, one of his last US appearances. Well, his last U.S. appearance, so that's going to be crazy. Oh, my goodness. But now that all the news and stuff is out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's episode, which is me and Adolfo reviewing Wrestle Kingdom 19. I love Wrestle Kingdom this season. It's one of the few, you know, New Japan shows we cover since the inception of BC WrestlePod, and this is the third year in a row that we're covering this, so this is nice. Last year, it was me and JVL covering Wrestle Kingdom 18. And so now Adolfo and I are covering Wrestle Kingdom 19.
Yeah,
we got a lot to talk about, so let's just jump straight into it, because we had a pre-show match, which I loved. So we opened with the pre-show, which was the annual tradition of the New Japan Rambo match. So for those of you not familiar with the Rambo, basically this is a battle royale-esque type of match stipulation in which the way to get eliminated is to either get thrown over the top rope or to get pinned inside the ring, which is either or is great. Normally, the Rambo, at least the last 2 or 3 years, has been to make the winner be the KPOW champion. but it was a month before Wrestle Kingdom that the current champion, the Great-O-Khan, decided to retire the championship, and as his finals, decree as champion, that the New Japan Rambo at Wrestle Kingdom 19 for this year would be for the number one contender to the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, which is the championship that is currently held by Zack Sabre Jr. So I was like,
greatest technical wrestler alive. I will die on that hill. Go ahead.
This is going to be so much fun to talk about. But yeah, as soon as that news came out, I was ecstatic because I always love the Rambo because that's where all the fun stuff happens. The wrestlers that aren't having matches on the card usually are on here. So, but this was a number one contendership for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And I was like, all right, let's see who we got. We had some really fun times with everybody in here. So, of course, our entrance included. Go for it.
Can we just announce the very first character that needs to be addressed for the entire weekend? That is that runway that the wrestlers had to come down, that LED illuminated runway. That thing was a character in itself. And the way that the wrestlers used it when they made their entrances was fantastic. I just had to give flowers to the runway. Go ahead, Mikey. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. I love this. Exactly. I love New Japan because it's such a long run day, but it's lit up by LED lights.
Yeah.
So whatever is
really
playing on the Titantron and on the stage kind of follows through, which is amazing. We had a couple of different people. Some of my highlights include Josh Barnett, of all people, was in this match, which I was just like, MMA Grandpa is here, and I am here for it. He also had a match at New Year's Dash, too, so that was kind of fun to hear about and read about. But we had Josh Barnett. We had Kenta doing the Santino Morella walk down to the runway. It was hilarious.
Great-O-Khan himself, he was the first one in. He had a really cool entrance where he did this whole, I don't want to say Ichicero thing, but very reminiscent of
with the question mark over. It's a staple. Yeah. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Nada was in a crop top. It was hilarious to watch.
Yeah. This
was just a fun match. We had a bunch of the New Japan guys, and of course, Alex Zane. From your local Taco Bell is how he gets introduced in he wrestles is hilarious. But ultimately, our final two end up being the Great-O-Khan, who Adolfo mentioned started off this whole thing, because this went for about half an hour, mind you. Yep. And Great-O-Khan was one of the two finalists, along with Hiroki Goto. The double O's always get to me. And honestly, I was like, what? Great-O-Khan being number one contender, this is great. But it was Goto who would end up eliminating the Great-O-Khan. Mm-hmm. And now he is the number one contender to the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Yeah. So who knows when that's going to be cashed in? I don't know if we're going to wait until Soccer Genesis or any of the other shows, but Goto's doing it for his kids, as his t-shirt said. I loved it.
Right. Yeah, he got a nice contract and all that. So I'm not, and maybe you can correct me on this. I'm not sure if it's like the Money in the Bank or if is it like a set thing that he can't just like jump in and be like, I'm cashing it in now. He has to like set it up.
So with New Japan, because they're more structured and traditional based, unless they change the rules, normally what the wrestlers do if they have a guaranteed championship match is they'll announce when they want to have that championship match by letting the challenger know, hey, this is when we're doing it. So Goto, especially since Goto is technically a face right now, he will announce it. Well, even the heels announce it too. But the fun thing with all this too is that Goto for the last year or two has been trying to get into the championship scene, trying to do some stuff. And he's just getting there, but continuing to lose and not, hitting the mark like he's supposed to. So I would not be surprised if he goes up against Zack, loses, and then turns heel, because a heel Goto would be very interesting. Of course, I say that as someone who's been following New Japan for a year or two, but I like that we got someone new, because I love Great-O-Khan and I would have been fine if he was number one contender. But I was like, all right, good on Goto. This is going to be an interesting one. So that was our pre-show match. And then we just jumped straight into the main card with our first match. Opening up Wrestle Kingdom 19 is the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship match in a Tokyo Terror ladder match. So this saw the teams of our, well, at the time at the beginning of this match, the current champions, the intergalactic, the jet setters, the intergalactic jet setters of Kevin Knight and Kushida, taking on the junior tag team tournament winners of the Ichiban Sweet Boys representing TMDK. So that's Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita. Also taking on the United Empires, also their tag team name of Catch 22, which is TJP and Francesco Akira, while also taking on Bullet Club War Dogs, being represented by Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney.
Yeah. This, as far as ladder matches go, this was one of the cleanest yet most exciting ladder matches I've seen. No one got split open. No one snapped their leg in half. That'll come later in the show. And it really felt like they were using the ladders but these guys were just, they're already all about the flippy dippy and, throw the ladder in there. Like that one dive Kevin Knight did from the really big ladder where I was like, dude, why don't you just reach over and grab the belts? Okay, we're doing this. That's fine. It was crazy. It was good. It was really good.
There was a moment where I did get a little worried, especially so we had Bullet Club War Dogs, so Clark Connors and Drilla, they set up a table outside and Drilla does the Drilla Killer on Kushida, but the table doesn't break, which I'm kind of glad because of how close they were to the barricade. If that table broke, I'm trying to imagine which part of Kushida would have hit the barricade. And so I'm kind of glad it didn't work. Also, shout out to Catch 22, TJP, and Francesco Akira with that move where TJP got Akira up onto his shoulders and then did a flip into the table below. Yeah. Which, by the way, these New Japan tables are so tiny. They are so much smaller in terms of length and width. There's not a lot of room for error with these.
Yeah, but
they do look thicker. I do agree with that.
Yeah, this was a great match. Kushida and Kevin Knight did end up losing the title.
Yep. They lost it to the Ichiban Sweet Boys, so Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita. And Fujita ended up being the one grabbing the titles because it was him and Akira on top, so Francesco Akira. And he got him in like a submission move through the ladder while he grabbed the titles too. So TMDK
that was really cool.
Now have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. This was a fun way to open up the main card. It was a 13-minute match too. It didn't go on for too long.
Yep.
So now, but this next match though, I wanted more time, and we'll talk about that more in depth when we get to our main event, because the second match of the main card was our IWGP Women's Championship match. So this was the champion, Mayu Iwatani, defending her championship against the challenger in Azumi. These girls brought it. Oh my God.
Yeah. It would have been nice to see the match go longer, but like from the jump, these two just were at an 11, and they did not let down. So like the fact that the match did go as long as it did, like I'm okay with it in this, in this instance, you know what I mean? But yeah, there were at least 2 or 3 German suplexes that Mayu Iwatani hit on Azumi that my knees just were like, dear God, woman, why? Because, normally when they take the German suplex, they're on their tippy toes. But no, she decided to just go like straight, like butt on the floor. And I'm like, so, and she did get it back. I think she like busted her mouth open or something like that. I could have sworn I saw some blood, but Azumi, when she did when she threw Tani out, and then like start on the other side of the ring and then jumped up into the corner and then did the planche on top of him, jumping over that. Yeah, that was brava.
Also, I think it was Tani who pulled off this move too. And shout out to the commentary team because she pulled out a Mystica. I was like, well, hello there. I know this move.
Yeah. Azumi. No, it was Azumi that was hitting that. It was gorgeous.
I was like,
gorgeous.
Again, Japanese wrestling and lucha libre, like they have so much in common. It's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a really good championship match. Mayu Iwatani does retain. Yeah.
It was so much fun. And shout out to both of these girls. I'm hoping that New Japan we'll spend some more time because one of the biggest critiques that fans have, and as well as I have, when it comes to New Japan's Women's Championship, is that we really haven't done much with it. So here's hoping that New Japan will give these girls at future shows more time and things like that. But other than that, these two killed it. It's fantastic. I loved it.
And also, like, going through what they did the night before in the Stardom show, because they had really intense matches the night before. So, like, to come out and wrestle the way they did, just like
brava. And these girls were busy. A lot of the Stardom girls were busy this weekend because they had their show the day before, and some of them appeared here and at Wrestle Dynasty, which, tune in Thursday for that review. But we move on to our third match of the main card of Wrestle Kingdom 19, which was a fatal four-way for the New Japan World Television Championship. So this had our champion, Ren Narita, defending his championship against Jeff Cobb of the United Empire, Ryohei Oiwa, and of course the returning and my personal favorite of ELP, El Fantasmo. Shout out to him because he was on a hiatus for a couple of months because he had to go back and deal with cancer. He's now cancer-free, came back to New Japan. These four... Jeff Cobb, man, like, I need people to stop sleeping on Jeff. He is so good. Jeff Cobb is awesome.
First person we need to talk about is Jeff Cobb, because not only does he have the power, but he has got some hops and some agility. He did that one, not moonsault, but the jump flip over the rope into the group, like it was, and then got that board that Rita had and broke it over his knee. I mean, he's good. He's really good. I was really also impressed with El Fantasmo. I felt like this match really showcased Jeff Cobb and El Fantasmo. And I might be wrong, but that's just like, because thinking back on the match, those are the two people that just stuck out in my mind. It felt like Narita was just kind of like trying to like hold on. He actually wasn't fighting. He was just like trying to like outmaneuver almost, which was enjoyable. I'm not saying that the match wasn't enjoyable. The match was very enjoyable. I feel that Jeff Cobb and El Fantasmo were, dare I say, the MVPs. El Fantasmo was the true MVP because I believe he won, if memory serves me correctly. Like I said on my social medias earlier today, like I've watched so much wrestling that Tanahashi and Mystico are now like one blob of a wrestler. I'm like, who are you and what moonflip is going on?
I need them to team up.
But yeah, El Fantasmo, he picks up the win in the championship, and good on him. I did go, and after I watched the match, I look up El Fantasmo and saw that he had taken the hiatus to battle cancer. So congratulations on both counts, good sir.
Yes. And I feel like this is well earned for El Fantasmo, especially because the last couple of years in New Japan, ELP is the only one left. Like, he got kicked out of Bullet Club when David Finlay took over. It was him and Hikuleo. His contract ended up. Like, he's a WWE. The Gorillas of Destiny of Tama Tonga and Tongaloa also left him, and they were with ELP was with them. So ELP is truly on his own right now. And so I am super happy that he is the champion. And the fun thing is that ELP doesn't have to wait long to defend the championship, because very soon New Japan is having their Battle in the Valley show, I believe, not too far.
I think it's this weekend.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's this weekend. It's this Saturday. Yeah. And ELP is defending the championship against Jeff Cobb.
Yep. Yeah, because I looked that up because I was aggravated because I wanted to watch it, and then I was like, oh, we're watching MLW.
Okay. Hey, if MLW didn't have a show, we would definitely be doing Battle in the Valley as a watch along instead, which would be fantastic. But stay tuned to the social medias because I will be doing a report card for that anyways. But ELP, love him. This match was fun. I agree with you, Adolfo, in the sense that this match really showcases Jeff and ELP, which I think is going to be important because with a lot of their heavy hitters that left the company are now in the United States, they are going to need to rely on more of their Gaijin talent in order to kind of be able to help out.
Right. And I think that was the point that Chris Charlton was really trying to get along and is that, a lot of the big names have now up and moved on, saying that, they're not on the normal shows anymore because they're doing other things. I mean, hell, we've seen that the talent it does come back and forth for certain shows, but I personally think that this is a good spot for NJPW because now, this talent that has been waiting in the wings can now like come forward, like your Jeff Cobb, your El Fantasma, all those guys. So, and mind you, this is from me. This is my second NJPW show that I've watched. So, I'm just taking off of like that and, what I've seen happen in other companies. And from what I've seen, like we said, don't sleep on this talent. This talent's really good. So it's time that they shine.
Exactly. Again, shout out to ELP. Congrats on the win. And so we move on to the fourth match on here. Look, I'm just going to come out and say it. Anytime House of Torture is on my screen, I roll my eyes because I'm like, shenanigans are going to be inbound. And there was no shortage of shenanigans in this next match. So
they didn't even advertise this as the Lumberjack match. It's just a special single match. Wow.
Yeah, this was a special single match. And we had the added stipulation of a Lumberjack death match. So the stakes were here. So this had Hiroshi Tanahashi taking on the leader of House of Torture in Evil. Yes, that is his name for those of you who aren't aware.
Yep.
So there were stakes to this because this is a Lumberjack death match, and the death match is where the stakes come in. If Tanahashi loses this match, he would have to retire from in-ring competition way before, because he announced when he was going to retire, which is at the end of this year. So if Hiroshi Tanahashi loses this Lumberjack death match with Evil, he has to retire here and then, and that is it. 2025, we kiss it goodbye. I figured that wasn't going to happen, but in this Lumberjack death match, we had the Lumberjacks were Toru Yano, Oleg Bolton, Tiger Mask, Master Wato, Dick Togo, Sho, Yujiro Takahashi, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So, of course, we had some House of Torture representatives. We had some other folks in here pulling double duty because Oleg was also in the Rambo match that opened up the show as well. So shout out to him. This was just Tanahashi dealing with House of Torture bullshit. Like that's how it was. Like there was shenanigans.
There was also some other shenanigans from the other guys, know.
And it was shenanigans galore, and I loved every single one. I'm like, I know what I'm getting with House of Torture involved in anything.
This was a beautiful, chaotic mess, and the nice thing about it is each little like bowl of chaos, let's call it, kind of like had its little spot, and then like made way for the next little bowl of chaos. Tanahashi and Evil, though, all shenanigans aside, they wrestled a hell of a match. This is, I believe, the third time I've seen Hiroshi Tanahashi wrestle. The first two times have been on US shows. So one was an AEW show. The other was, I believe, Door show. Yeah, last year's I apologize. Not 2020. I think it was 2023's Forbidden Door. And there was another AEW show in there. And this is a complaint that we've often aired in that it feels like when foreign talent comes into the US for whatever reason, like slaps restrictors on them, kind of like an anime when your protagonist has the power put on them. But like this, this match, it was just like Hiroshi Tanahashi was like, lift restrict level 0. And he just like went to town, and I saw Hiroshi Tanahashi wrestle, and I am happy that before he retires, I saw Hiroshi wrestle, not just wrestle. So, that's my take on that.
I agree with your take too. So this was a beautifully chaotic, messy match that we love. And of course, Hiroshi Tanahashi does pick up the victory over Evil. House of Torture and Evil come to beat up Tanahashi afterwards. And then he is saved by somebody in an AEW hoodie. And when the hood comes off, it is revealed to be the wrestler Katsuyori.
That was really cool. That was really, really cool. And can I say my piece because I'm not going to be here tomorrow night or on Thursday night for all right. So kind of to jump the shark, this sets up a match with Hiroshi Tanahashi for Wrestle Dynasty. And that match, it was perfection in its simplicity. Right. I often, when I talk to my partner, I often talk about grilled cheese sandwiches, right? Anyone can make a grilled cheese sandwich. However, it's not that hard. Bread, butter, cheese. However, very few people can take a grilled cheese sandwich and elevate it to perfection, a piece of art, you know? And that's what that match was. There was nothing flashy with Shibata and Tanahashi. You know, they went in there, they chopped the crap out of each other. They did the thing, but it was beautiful. And at the end, they shook hands and hugged and like went about their and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So, you know, again, I'm very happy that I saw Hiroshi Tanahashi wrestle. But yeah, that was that.
This was fun. Again, as Adolfo said, Shibata comes out for the save, you know, gets on the mic and challenges Tanahashi to a match at Wrestle Dynasty, in which he accepts. And then we will talk more about that match on Thursday. Me and Will at least. But we move on because I was like, you know what? At this point in the show, I was like, this is a really fun show. Wrestle Kingdom has been really fun. I've been enjoying everything. I wonder what's next. How? Oh my God.
Not kinda. I wanted to see Shingo Takagi get the win and take Konosuke Takeshida's national championship belt.
My God. Okay. Like, okay. So let's break this down before we get into this match. Cause you know, for Wrestle Kingdom, this was my match of the evening. Okay. So this was a match that was scheduled to be for the Never Openweight Championship. However, there was a little bit of a kind of on that. And down here below, even though it's a tiny font, it says that if Takeshita can hold on to the AEW International Championship by the end of World's End, then this will become a title for title winner take all match. So this will be for the Never Openweight Championship and the AEW International Championship. Well, Takeshita was able to retain it against Powerhouse Hobbs at World's End. So this match became a title for title match. These boys threw down.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, you know, I've seen Shingo Takagi wrestle in CMLL.
Had that banger against Danielson at Forbidden Door this past December too.
Yep, he also had that banger with Danielson. But this match was amazing. It was amazing. And, you know, Shingo Takagi went after it and he wrestled really well. I do want to give Konosuke Takeshita his flowers though. He's becoming, or, you know, maybe he has been and now we're just seeing it, but he is becoming like the type of wrestler that we've described Swerve Strickland, in that you put him against anyone and he will make them look good. You know what I mean? Even in a loss. Because thinking back at Shita's matches and his defenses of his belt, they've all been great. They've all looked really well. They've all looked really hard fought. You know, he has a great sense of balancing power and yeah, it was a great match. It was definitely a great match. It was fun watching these two square off against each other.
I love this for Takeshita. And I'm going to kind of jump the lead a little bit, but I'll repeat it on Thursday. But we come to find out that, you know, Takeshita does win. So he's now the Never Openweight and the AEW International Champion. And we also learn in his press conference after Wrestle Dynasty that he has signed a small deal with New Japan. So Takeshita is currently signed with New Japan, AEW, and DDT Wrestling, which is located in Japan as well. So I'm just like, you go, Takeshita, and we'll talk more in depth about it on Thursday. But me and Adolfo were exchanging messages, and I'm like, put this world title on this man right now. I want to see Takeshita championship in 2025 because and Wrestle Dynasty, that man brought it.
I will say though, while I was watching this match, I thought about the Intercontinental ladder match where we were like, Takeshita should get for
the TNT championship, he won that ladder match.
Right. Yeah. And he didn't. And we were like, oh, for the love of peace, put gold on Takeshita. And now look at him.
He's got 2 championships, signed to 3 promotions. Takeshita is killing it. And I'm so happy for him.
Yep. He really is. And apparently he wrote to wrestling promotions at the age of 11. Yo.
Love it. This was such an amazing match. This, for me, was my match of the night. I enjoyed this so much. Both men brought it. Takeshita walks out as a double champion, which I love. And this was a fantastic match.
Yes.
This is where the win kind of went out the sales. And it's not because the match was bad. It was just an unfortunate event that happened. But before we get into all of that, This was our next match on the card, and this was for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. So this was the champion in Doki taking on a returning after injury El Desperado and I was super excited. These two have squared up before in the past, especially with Desperado when he was champion. Doki is the currently champion. First of all, I love Doki's aesthetic. I love the whole thing that he has going on with his character. I am also a sucker for Desperado. I was like, you go, Japanese luchador. I'm here for all of that because we have seen Japanese style mixed with lucha libre is fantastic. Look at Despi, and also Titan, who is also a New Japan wrestler who is also a luchador too. Love it. We'll talk about him on Thursday.
Yes. But yeah, no, this match started and, right out the gun, these two were going at it. El Desperado did this. Doki tried to do this like clothesline on El Desperado. El Desperado. He just went down full split, blam, right? And that just kind of like was, the bar was set for this match, and this match, they kept, going at it, a lot of high energy, and it kept going up. He gets thrown out of the ring. Doki on the top turnbuckle. He goes to do a moonflip somersault off the top rope onto Eldas, who is on the floor outside of the ring. And unfortunately, and I saw it happen, and I didn't want to see it happen. Doki put his arm down when he came down, and his arm said, step, and they called the match, and El Desperado won. So I didn't have enough time, so I wasn't able to do any research to see how bad it was. But when they showed the replay, you saw Doki's arm just go like this. He had some blood, so I'm assuming that he got some sort of compound fracture, or like his elbow got jacked up. But I think that some bone came out of skin, and there is no way of kayfabing that.
No, that was nuts. And as you said, because of that, Despy is the champion.
And thank you, NJPW, for not playing Doki breaking his arm like they did with Darius Martin when he broke his leg, and they kept replaying it. And it was like, for the love of Pete, stop.
Listen, like nobody wanted to see Dante's leg snap over and over again. Oh, it was so bad. Yeah. So El Desperado does walk out as the champion. Afterwards, he gets on the mic. He talks about, this is not how how he wanted the match to go, but he is happy to be champion. When Doki is ready to come back and he is healed from injury, he wants to give him a rematch. And until then, he's going to defend his championship. So I'm like, the circumstances really do suck. We here at BC WrestlePod wish Doki for, a speedy recovery, because he's been a fantastic champion. Me and Adolfo and Will got to see a little bit of him during Fantastica Mania early.
Yep.
Of course, in 2024. And he was a lot of fun in that tag team match with I think he teamed up with Ultimo Guerrero, which was really fun to watch.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was really fun.
So I actually I have it right here. I just looked it up. According to Cultaholic, he dislocated his elbow, and it looks like he's going to be out for 6 to 12 weeks.
Okay, so weeks is not bad.
Yeah. Take your time, because it looked ugly. It
was crazy.
Bad. So take your time, Doki. Come back when you're ready, and then we can pick this match up. I'll be front row.
100%. So El Desperado, new champion. So we move on to our next match. This match also slapped. So this was for the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. The champion, David Finlay, former tag team partner with the Juices Loose Robinson, taking on the challenger in Yota Tsuji. I don't know what his inspiration was, but first and foremost, I want to talk about the drip that these two came out in when their entrances. Yota Tsuji, anybody who's seen the anime Hellsing and Hellsing Ultimate, I was like, yes, give me vampire vibes. I was here for all of that. But then for David Finlay to be cosplaying a fighter from Tekken, I barely can put a Halloween costume together, but that was a beautiful prop. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I always love wrestling in video games. I mean, we talked about it last year. Will Ospreay's Assassin's Creed inspired gear at Wrestle Kingdom, and at Forbidden Door too. I was just at All In, which was really fun. But
and then can I also just add Yota Tsuji? I would buy that man.
He is fine.
Ooh, child.
slow motion with the hair. I was like, yeah.
My goodness. And with the tassels and everything.
He is very pretty. He will also punch you if you make him mad. Like this, I've always critiqued David Finlay. I think he's finally coming to his own as the leader of Bullet Club since, taking it from Sonata all those years ago. This was David Finlay's probably best match since being the champion, in my opinion. Not to say that he's bad at wrestling, but I think now that he's finally come into his own with his character and his style, this was his best match, and both of these men brought it. This was my second favorite match of the entire night. Yeah. Just from, David Finlay brutalizing, being, showing us why he is the leader of the Bullet Club War Dogs. But Yota Tsuji coming back and answering hit for hit.
He would not give up, Yota Tsuji. He kept fighting. And, this match, I have spoken before about how matches, one of the things that frustrates me about matches sometimes is that you'll have one wrestler and he'll just pummel the crap out of the other wrestler, and the other wrestler just does like one or two moves and then bing, bang, boom, pins the other individual, right? David Finlay had a big stretch where he was pounding the crap out of Yota Tsuji, and he would try to pin him. Yota would come up with a near fall, right? And then it was a beautiful thing where Yota just like reversed it and had a good, again, I hate to do it, but doing that, referring back to anime, that like last minute, he got the pin on David Finlay and is the new IWGP Global Heavyweight Champ.
This was such a phenomenal match. And David Finlay, you have earned my respect. And, credit to you, Yota Tsuji, you brought it to. Yep. This was my second favorite match of the entire night. This was a fantastic way. David and Yota would both be busy on Wrestle Dynasty because they would also have matches, which to set it up, the stipulation was whoever walked out of this match would have the championship on the line against their opponent. So at Dynasty, because Yota Tsuji won, his match against the scapegoat, Jack Perry, became a IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship match, which we'll talk about more in depth on Thursday. But this was a really great match. Both men brought their A game. This was fantastic. Love it. Poor Bullet Club War Dogs. They couldn't catch a break this evening because they couldn't capture the Junior Tag Team Championships. David Finlay lost his title, and Gabe Kidd, as much as he tried, he could not defeat Kenny Omega at Wrestle.
We'll get there. Don't jump the shark.
Me and Will will definitely cover that. Will and I are going to talking about that in depth, which makes me super excited. But we move on into our semi-main event, so the second to last match, which was a special single match of master versus pupil in a way. So this was the leader. This is the leader of LIJ. So and Tetsuya Naito taking on one of my favorite wrestling personalities with their ring gear in Takahashi, and he did not disappoint me this year. I'm just like, yes. And he's also going to be busy at Battle in the Valley because he's part of Sumi Sakai's retirement match with the 3-on-3. So that's going to be so much fun. So, okay, I love this match. I already knew that the wrestling wasn't going to be like off the wall, like everybody bouncing off the ropes and things like that, because Tetsuya is a man of a certain age. And anybody who knows Tetsuya Naito knows how banged up he is. Both like he literally has no depth perception on his eyes. Like his shoulders are not great. This is a man who is probably going to retire in like 2 to 3 years because of how much his body has been through in wrestling. And it definitely showed a little bit, but I could put that aside because this was just this was the emotional match of the evening.
Yeah.
This is where the emotions came out because this was student versus teacher, and I loved that. And we kind of talked about it during our review last night of Stardom, but the acting along with the wrestling too, and Japanese wrestling is so strong, and this was no exception.
Yeah, so this was my match of the night, and it was because of the story that was told. He is showing the mileage. However, he still wrestled a fantastic match. Again, it's that it was simple. What was put out was perfection. He did that. His finishing move is still something that he pulled it out of nowhere, and it was really impressive when he does. I forgot what it's called, but it's the where he flips over the individual and like DDTs them or whatnot.
I believe that's the Destino. Yeah, I think it's the Destino.
Yeah, and he did that twice. So, that takes a lot of, strength to pull off. So good on. We've seen him wrestle before again in CMLL. I enjoy his style. I feel that because he is the student, him and Naito, do have, I should say, a pre-existing knowledge of how each other wrestles. So they could push a little harder on each other. The thing that I loved about this match, though, was the end where Takahashi, did end up showing his respect and bowing.
And kind of threw out an invitation, which got accepted. And so while the main event was about to get started back at the pressers, we learned that not only does Great-O-Khan have Jeff Cobb as his tag team partner, but the match for the IWGP Tag Team Championships went from a 2-on-2 to a triple threat match because Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito get added to the match because now it's going to be those two versus Great-O-Khan and Jeff Cobb of United Empire versus the Young Bucks at Wrestle Dynasty. So, when I learned that, I was like, oh, this is about to be a great match. This is going to be fun.
Young Bucks bucking the Death Riders in Japan.
Seriously, it's crazy out here. But speaking of Death Riders, because this is a move that he uses, we get into our main event, the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And this saw the challenger in Chino taking on the champion, Zack Sabre Jr.
The greatest technical wrestler alive. I will die on that hill.
So before we get into the match itself, I want to give a little bit of a history for those of you who don't know. So when people saw this match when this match was made, the discourse of the fans were not really happening. So unfortunately, Shota Umino has had a really tough time getting over in New Japan with the Japanese crowd and just wrestling fans in general, because it feels that there's just some things that are missing in his repertoire in order to make him stand out. And of course, the big thing online that a lot of people were talking about before this match is that the ref, Red Shoes, as he's known, because he was a ref who wears red shoes, that is Shota's dad. So a lot of the things are just like, so is Shota going to have his dad get involved because he's a referee? And, things of nepotism coming in play. So, which didn't help the fact that Shota has really had a hard time getting over in New Japan anyways, before all this discourse in this match was made. I think, and I've been following Shota for a little bit, I personally feel like this is the best match that he has done in his career in New Japan. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say this here, down the line in like 2 or 3 years, run this back again when Shota's gotten more wrestling under his belt. I want to see this match. We got a 43-minute match from this. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah. And I mean, this match showed why Zack Sabre Jr. is your IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And I don't mean that as a detraction of Shota Umino, right? Because Umino wrestled a hell of a match. But be it real life, storyline, whatever, his inexperience, I felt, showed and is what sunk him. Not that he wasn't talented enough, not that he was like, punching over his weight or whatever, but just, that inexperience is what doomed him, because Zack Sabre Jr. he had that ring acumen. He had that, that experience to just counter Shota Umino. I mean, there were a lot of moves that Zack Sabre Jr. put on Shota Umino, but Shota got out of them, and was able to wrestle out of them. And he showed he had great heart, but, in the end, Zack Sabre just that experience. It took two. What does Zack Sabre call his finishing moves? The Sabre Bomb or whatever.
I believe that's what it's called. And that's the funny thing, because New Japan doesn't name finishers like United States wrestlers. Here in the States we have finishers, but Zack just. The funny thing is with Zack, I think he has like 5 or 6 different finishers, and they're like, we can never tell which one he's going to use.
Right. Well, the Canadian Destroyer Powerbomb-esque move that he does, where he actually reaches in between the person's leg and like grabs their arm instead of just like folding them over. he had to hit that twice in order to pin Shota Umino. And that was like the first time Shota Umino wrestled out of it. Zack Sabre was able to get him like in the ankle lock, blah, blah, blah. Shota Umino wrestled out of that. Shota Umino tried to fight back, but again, like that inexperience, and Zack Sabre Jr. took advantage of that, and he hit that move again, and that was where Zack ended up pinning Shota Umino. So it was a great 43 minutes of wrestling. So, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great. I felt like it deserved to be the main event.
It definitely is. And of course, because it's the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, that's usually what main events, because it's New Japan's biggest. But the leader of TMDK, the Mighty Don't Kneel, is your winner. Also, this is just a small little embellishment here, but like I popped real hard hearing Zack Sabre Jr. in his very Cockney accent speak fluent Japanese. Like,
yeah, that threw me for a loop.
I was like, you go see, and I was just like, most gaijin wrestlers, they don't have to do that because New Japan provides translators and all that. But hearing Zack go between English and Japanese, I was just like, oh, it warms my little heart.
Yeah, he did his homework.
He's been wrestling in New Japan for a very long time, so he decided to learn. Also, Kenny Omega does really good Japanese too. If you haven't seen his interviews, so good.
Yes,
and it's fantastic.
Really, really quick. And this is my own personal thing. This is how I knew that Shota Umino pushed Zack to the edge. Of all the matches that I've watched Zack Sabre Jr., his shin pad things have always stayed perfect on his legs. Right, end of the match, they were all like turned around, and like he looked like a disheveled mess at the end of this match. So that's how I was like, okay, this kid took Zack Sabre Jr. To the end. So good on him.
I love this match, and of course, again, this match also had stipulations for Dynasty because whoever won this match would make their match with their opponent a championship match. Since Zack retained, that means that his match against Ricochet would become the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at Dynasty. So, Adolfo, that brings us to the end of Wrestle Kingdom 19, our review. Once again, round 2 is in. Before we wrap up, Adolfo, one
last thing I want to talk about really quick, and that is I love the bell that NJPW uses.
Yes.
It sounds so just old school and just like, I like, because we're at the end and the bell, in my head, I hear the bell ringing. So I wanted to bring that up before.
No, that's okay. That leads perfectly into my final question. So, Adolfo, before we sign off for the evening, I just want to get your overall thoughts. This was not to say that you are not new to New Japan, but this was the first real New Japan, like strictly New Japan show that you watched. So what did you think about Wrestle Kingdom 19 and just some observations and thoughts that you had overall?
I loved the pomp and circumstance of it all. I loved how big it was. I loved that every match I felt brought it. There was not a match in there that like the two wrestlers like phoned it in. I'm excited to see it next year. And, I think I jumped the shark last night when I said this, but if they do another weekend where it's, the start of the New Year's show, then Wrestle Kingdom, then Wrestle Dynasty all in one weekend, my 50th birthday is coming up. So, that might be what I gift myself to go and watch that weekend. It was great. I really enjoyed it. So the airtime for Wrestle Kingdom started at like 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I got halfway through the 4-way match and we were watching it together, Mikey. And I was like, Mikey, I got to tap out. It's not because it's not of not wanting to watch. It was my body was physically shutting down.
It was almost 3 a.m. when we were for your time. And it was even late for me because I'm like, midnight's still pretty late to watch wrestling for me.
Yeah. So, but I enjoyed every minute of it. And I look forward to watching more New Japan wrestling.
I'm super excited to hear that because Our next strictly New Japan show we are going to be covering until we get the announcement of Sakura Genesis will be Windy City Riot in April. So we will be covering Windy City Riot, which is, like I said at the top of the episode, Tanahashi's last U.S. appearance in his career. So that's going to be fun to watch. And then, of course, Sakura Genesis will be happening in Japan, which is also a big thing for New Japan. So whenever we get that announcement, we'll definitely also see if we can add it to our roster. But Adolfo, round 2 is done. The kickoff week for BC WrestlePod in 2025 is off to a solid start with the last 2 days. And it's going to continue tomorrow because I will be tagging out in terms of being the host, because Adolfo here will be, or somebody who looks like him. We still haven't figured that out. I think there's a cloning situation going on, but I will be tagging out.
You mean the luchador? Yeah.
So I will be tagging out as the host, and I will be tagging out as the lead and just be a regular host, because tomorrow we will go back to our regular scheduled programming as we have our first CMLL review of 2025.
Yep. And CMLL was quite busy over the holiday season.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. Child, it got crazy. Like, it's been a busy weekend of wrestling, let me tell you. But I will be back with my CMLL team tomorrow. And, as well as Papa and myself, will be reviewing the first CML of 2025. And I'm super.
Yes. Very excited. I'm very excited to see the show. I'm sure the second he'll do a great job.
Oh, absolutely. I'm also going to try to get his number, but that's a different story for a different time. Be like, oh my. Anyways, me and Adolfo got to get up on out of here. But thank you so much for tuning in to our second show in our 2025 kickoff week. Tomorrow we have our CMLL review. So until then, from the duo that is Adolfo and I, as well as the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern for CMLL. But until then,
thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's going to happen next time? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.